So I had a acute death in the family recently. Somebody who was near and dear to me. And I'd never had to deal with profound grief before. Like, you can grieve for pets, and in many ways, at least the initial stages, um, grieving for a pet was very hard, very, you know, if it was a pet that was particularly cherished, which my pets all are. I get very close with my animals. Um, it was very visceral kind of grief. But it dissipates and it's not that it gets easier, and you don't forget, but it's not quite the same as this type of grief that I'm experiencing at the moment. Um, it's unusual. I haven't quite experienced anything like it before, which seems to be quite a theme at the moment for me. This year, actually, there's been a lot of like funky stuff happening in my life that I haven't experienced before, that I've had to learn to cope with in new ways. A lot of change and development, and not all of it good, some of it not bad, but just a lot of change. A lot of change very makes you tired, Well, I haven't had to deal with this type of grief before, and I find it very strange because it's odd because it's not at the forefront of your mind ever. And if you experience like bad depression, anxiety, it's not quite at the surface, but you're still aware of it. You're aware of it underneath, like a river, like an underground stream, like you can hear it. And it creates noise in your day to day. Manageable, but it's there, it's there. But grief, this type of grief, at least for me, like is way down there. Like you can't hear it. You can't see it. You only know it's there when it bubbles to the surface. And it feels like there's no control over that. And I wonder, I'm not even like learned in this kind of thing. And I haven't really talked to anybody about it, professional or otherwise. Um, I wonder if the circumstances surrounding the individual and how they passed matters in terms of how you process grief on a personal level. I have to imagine it does. But I just have these moments throughout the day, stupid things really, you know, like I'm going through some shit at the moment, and I could only think about wanting to talk to her about it. And I can't, obviously. Like, I could go to her grave, talk to the grave, and I know there's some people that get a kind of catharsis from that. I'm not really one of them. Like, I go up to the grave and sometimes I say something, sometimes I don't, but I don't believe. Uh, Sometimes I'll go up and move some things around, and I haven't brought flowers up yet because the headstone hasn't been put on yet because the ground has to settle because it's very wet here all the time. Um, so there's nowhere really to put flowers. I put a rose up there because I bought roses for a girl recently, uh, but they didn't make it to her. So I gave them to my mom and up to the grave, But it doesn't do anything. And the problem with it being so deep down is it kind of seems like there's no like decent way of venting it or reaching that level, you know. So I mean, I suppose that this is curious, really, isn't it? Like, is this just something that I have to deal with forever now? Like, it's just it's just a part of my day to day. Fuck, I hope not. Um, but it sucks. It sucks because I have such a big problem with finites, finite things. I don't like the idea of life having a sell by date. I don't like it when people talk in terms of relationships as it's not forever. You should always operate under the assumption that it is forever. Obviously, most of the time it doesn't work out that way. But I really hate when people put a timeline on anything in life, because it cheapens it, right? Cheapens the notion. Some people would say what greaters the notion. You know, you concentrate the period of time that you have. But if you're going into something with the premeditation that it's not going to last forever, then you're not going to be fully committed anyway, are you? It just doesn't sit well with me. It's like it's such a to me it's pessimism, you know, about something that you shouldn't be pessimistic about, which is fucking ironic coming from me, uh, most miserable bastard that's ever walked the earth, you know. But that's what I feel. Uh, yeah, I don't know. See, the death itself was pretty. I mean, I wasn't there for it, but I was there the morning that it happened. Um, we kind of had a routine, you know. She had had a stroke, you see, a couple of weeks earlier, and she was not non-verbal, you know. And when she was in the hospital, she was. I knew that she could hear, um, because when I was up at the hospital, I heard during the night, and then I couldn't get up at night, so I had to go in the morning first thing. Um, so I did. I went up by myself, and I said my wee bit, because it seemed like it was approaching the end of a very difficult journey over the course of a year, um, which was very unhappy for everyone involved, including her. So in some ways, it was good that we were not getting to the point that there was like a stable suffering. Um, in many respects, it was, I suppose, it was kind of a mercy, you know, because I wouldn't want her to suffer. Um, so I went up to the hospital. I said my wee bit to her, and she squeezed my hand and everything, you know. So she was in there. People were saying like, "Oh, she's gone and she's not the same." All this fucking shit, you know. Everybody's such a fucking coward about everything. I'm like, fuck no, she's in there clearly. And she was like, she would talk sometimes to me, you know. She would say some wee things. It was hard to, because when you have a stroke, like a, I don't know the medical terminology, but a full brain thing, you know, you lose the ability to speak. You're not coherent and so on. You think and you have things that you want. It must be terribly frustrating because you think and you have things that you want to say, and everything is very, very far away. It's almost like you're in a dream. You know, have you ever had one of those dreams where you're trying to do something, but you can't do it the way that you want it? And it's very frustrating. I imagine how I justify it to myself or explain it to myself is that that's what it was like for her. So in a way, I'm glad for it because I don't think that she was fully kind of lucid all the time. But I think for the things that mattered, it did penetrate. And because she cried when I said stuff, so she was understanding. Uh, so that was hard. And then we made arrangements to bring her back to the house for end of life stuff. Silly me, in my fucking horrible optimism, um, I was like, she's gonna get better, you know, because people recover from strokes. However, the funny thing is, her brother also had a stroke around. My phone ran out of space. So her brother had a stroke around about the same time, but his wasn't nearly as severe. Um, and he recovered just fine. You know, he's not 100%, but functional, more than functional. Um, so I was like, she's gonna at least maybe regain like the ability to communicate. Um, but she didn't. She went downhill pretty fast. It only took a week. Because she wasn't eating or anything, you see. And she hadn't really been eating for a very long time prior to the stroke. Um, and there's more to it, really, as well. Hell, maybe I should just talk about it all. Nobody even fucking watches this shit anyways. This is just for me. Um, so there were other circumstances, like prior to the stroke, like they wouldn't get carers and stuff. Or I don't know, it was also confusing. To me, it was very simple. Somebody needed help, and the person that was looking after her, um, it's not fair to put that all on them. Problem is, like, it's not in my power, and it's not in my mom's power to intervene. It's a decision that they would have had to come to themselves, but both were stubborn. That's how they are, old people things. Um, if it was mom in that situation, we would have had help. Uh, I would have had help because I know that kind of stuff is very, very, very taxing, extremely taxing. And it raises so many issues and things that you'll think about for years and years and years. And it's not fair for one person to shoulder such a burden. So you have to get help. You just have to. I know they had some help, but again, the details are hazy. It's been such a fucking year. I don't even remember like what I did yesterday. Um, so there were decisions made that she was going to go into a home. Now I don't remember the details of that. It was like, I don't know if she wanted it or he wanted it or they both decided this or nobody decided this, but they were doing it anyway. I don't know, but the stroke happened when she was getting moved into the ambulance, you see, to take her to the new place. And you know, I understand that strokes are kind of like they just sort of happen, right? Um, but people mention like moving her and the anxiety of that would have caused the stroke. Uh, I wouldn't use that language because it implies blame. I think that if the stroke was there, it was probably the best place for it to happen in the fucking ambulance so they can take her somewhere with medical professionals, because if it happened in the house and it was because it was so severe, she wouldn't have made it to the hospital to begin with. So I suppose it's fortunate that way, you know. That's the funny thing about living through these kind of uh, traumatic experiences. You find very strange ways of bargaining with the moment. You find strange justifications for everything. Uh, so so there was that, and then she came home, and then we had a routine where I would go down every few days. Prior to that, when she was well, it was maybe like every few weeks. Because I'm busy, like I've got trying to build a business, takes a lot of my time, and I don't sleep well, and my sleep's kind of fucked up always. So, um, yeah. So I was going down every few days. We had like a wee routine, and then it was on a Sunday. I went down, and like she wasn't great, to be honest. If you've ever cared for or been around anybody that can't kind of look after themselves, like even as simple as like swallowing, she had in the hospital she had a very bad like thrush in her on her tongue, and because the body can't fight it off, and there wasn't really any like decent treatment for it. There's a whole lot of gunk in her throat, and she's laying on her back. Um, but she also needs to drink water, you see, and her swallowing was kind of iffy a lot of the time. Like you can do stuff like stimulate the throat and so on, because the body is good like that. Like it has reflexes for swallowing and so on. It's not the case that um, you just automatically choke. She could swallow. It's just sometimes it was hard. So I spent most of the morning clearing out her throat with they give you like a little suction pump thing, you know, because my granddad, his hands are too shaky, you see, and he doesn't have the patience for it, whereas I do. Um, so I just talk to her and do that. I got most of it out, to be honest, because the pump wasn't working. I had to fix the pump as well. Um, well, we fixed it. We put our minds together, figured out the infernal contraption. Um, so we did that. Um, but the whole morning she was muttering, which was unusual, and it was repetitive. It was the same thing. I couldn't quite make it out, you know. And you would ask, it's like, what are you trying to say? Try to say it a bit clear. You encourage communication because you're rewriting your brain, after the stroke to help. Um, she just kept repeating this, whatever it was. Um, we came to the conclusion towards the end of the day that it was a prayer because I think that she knew that she was going. Um, I think that she knew. Don't ask me how she knew or how that even works, but she did know because she's a devout Catholic, you see. Um, so I think she was praying to her God, which is comforting. I hope it brought her comfort towards the end. Um, it was, it was all, it felt very scripted, like she held on to see me kind of thing, you know. Uh, and then I left. And before I left, because this was also like an event, when I would go down and I would leave, I'm sure you've probably had these kind of situations with family or old people before where you want to go, but you don't want to be rude about it and you're trying to be nice, so you end up just standing like at the door for fucking 30 minutes having a conversation. You know, it's funny, but that's what happened, you know. And it was almost like as soon as I left, well, I know because when I left the room, and you say this to people who have not experienced death before, um, and people kind of just look at you like you're grasping at straws or you're a bit unhinged or something, but I'm not lying. A fucking shadow came over her. Like her whole demeanor changed. She was originally to her side and she rolled through her own mobility onto her back, which was unusual in itself. And she just stared straight ahead and her whole expression changed and she looked like death. Like she looked like she was staring at something. And I didn't know what to think of it. But as soon as I left the apartment, because I walked past our church, you see, I thought, fuck, I should probably call into the priest here. I didn't, but I should have. It didn't matter either way, but the thought crossed my mind. And then I walked back, and just before I got back here, I got the call. And we had to go down, and I heard him wailing from the street, and I won't get that out of my head again. It was so heartbreaking. And then had to call the priest and all that kind of stuff, you know. A lot of it was very automatic. See, she had plans and everything already set up, which made it like so much fucking infinitely easier. And that was that. I did the funeral and everything, but see, the thing is, this was 2 months ago. I haven't cried. Even like, it was so weird, like sitting in the room with her when she was gone. Just nothing came. And then I had to make phone calls and stuff anyway, and you can't make phone calls if you're not functional. And I had to do that because everyone else was non-functional, which I didn't mind. That's fine. You know, it's the least I can do. But I still haven't cried since. And it kind of troubles me a bit because it's not that I'm scared that people will think that I don't care or something like that. I know that I cared. Of course I do. It bothers me every day, but I don't want it to come up in the future. Like I'm the kind of person that if this is a problem, I would rather just deal with it and have it done. But I'm aware that it's there, and I don't know how to cope with that. Like I don't know how to bring it out. I've tried going to therapy and stuff, and it just doesn't come up. It's just there. I'm aware of it. It's here, you know. I just can't get rid of it. I've tried stuff like there's a thing I used to do in my early 20s because my life sucks. So you find these weird ways of coping with things. I would go up into the woods when there's nobody around. You find a nice isolated spot. I know several. And you just fucking scream. You scream fucking bloody murder at the top of your lungs until your throat is sore and your head is sore and you're tired, and then you just can't help it. You just cry. You just happens, you know. And anybody that hears that fucking anguish, that terrible scream, and it is terrible, you know, fucking shit their pants, I'm sure. You know, they're probably thinking somebody's getting murdered or something. But that's what you have to do. I've done that and nothing. Not a damn thing. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to cope with it. I guess I just have to wait. I just hope it doesn't bubble up when it's something that I care about. You know? Uh, yeah. So grief is weird. It's not something I've experienced before. It's something that I'm learning about now. Um, and it seems like there's nothing you can really do about it. Which is kind of shite, isn't it? So, oh well.